Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. In the previous video, we spoke about taking care of our bodies, and I thought it's very important to proceed and talk about taking care of our mental health. And in that line, God really affirmed me about taking care of myself holistically and being well holistically because it's important for us to show up as our best selves. And I thought it's important to bring someone who can speak to us about how to nurture our mental health. And here with me, I have Makungu Valoi, who is an occupational therapist and a master's candidate. She runs a platform on Instagram addressing stigma through mental health advocacy and mental illness awareness. Welcome, babes.
Thanks, Kansani. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Awesome. I was a bit nervous about this conversation, but it was so important for me as well. When we spoke initially, I
Yeah.
told you about how at work I was just going through a lot emotionally, and it was starting like I was feeling it in my body,
Yeah.
especially my shoulders.
Sure. Yeah.
So it was affecting my body, literally my physical body. And then I thought we've spoken a lot about careers and different stuff on the channel, but we haven't spoken about taking care of ourselves holistically.
Yes.
And you are here because you are going to tell us more about how to nurture our mental health.
Yes. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, we'd like to get to know you firstly. So tell us a bit about yourself and why you chose to study occupational therapy.
Okay. As you've introduced me so beautifully, my name is Makungu, and yes, I'm an occupational therapist. The journey to occupational therapy wasn't as smooth, I guess. I guess some people would say you're so passionate about your profession and mental health in general, but I actually wanted to do medicine. I wanted to be a doctor, throughout sort of, I'd say, my whole life until in about so I got into OT and didn't get into medicine. So I thought, okay, let me just try and work my way, or like not really work my way. That's not the right terminology I want to use, but more while I'm studying, then still apply for medicine. And I think it was in my second year where I felt God laid on my heart and said, listen, this is where I've strategically placed you. Why are you trying to run away from something
So
that
good.
I've placed you in? And in that, I still wasn't haven't found my niche yet. And as I grew in the profession, I realized that I want to be a mental health advocate, and that's where it makes sense for me. So yeah, why I studied OT, God knows, because I did not apply necessarily saying I want to be an occupational therapist, but now I don't see myself doing anything else. So yeah, yeah.
That's amazing. So where did you study?
I studied in Stellenbosch, down Tygerberg campus. Yeah, that's where I was based.
Okay, awesome, interesting. Without saying too much, let's get into it. Can you tell us ways in which we can nurture our mental health?
Yes, of course. Can I start by explaining a little bit about what mental health is? I think it's sort of abstract and it can be quite broad for us to understand. So, according to the World Health Organization, mental health is a state of well being where one is able to realize their abilities, they're able to contribute productively and fruitfully in their community, and they're able to deal with normal stresses in life, right? And even with that definition, it's sort of like, okay, but what is mental health? And if you think about physical wellness or, someone who broke their leg, it's easy for us to accommodate for them. We can see they're in crutches. They can show you x-rays. It's easy for us to see everything, and we accommodate, we allow for space for them to heal. But with mental health, it's difficult to see, I'd say, per se, the brain in essence. You only see it through functioning. So only when your function changes, your sleep patterns change, the way you engage with your loved ones, your dress code, everything that you used to be is no longer the same, right? That's when we can see that there's a chemical imbalance that has occurred. So obviously the doctors can therefore see it and do scans, but the public, it's difficult for them to see it. But if you understand that with mental health, there are certain chemicals in our brain. So, for example, when you go running, you feel sort of happier, right? Or you play a game, you feel happier. We fall asleep, that's another chemical. So our brain is a constant sort of interaction of chemicals. And we see that through the way we sleep, the way we interact with others. So then how do I take care of my mental health? Now that we understand that it's sort of a chemical interaction that shows itself in how we engage with our lives, our finances, our social. It's taking care of those spheres of your life.
Okay.
So taking care of your finances, taking care of your social life, your physical health, right? Your spiritual wellness as well. All those factors of your life. And in that, you're able to then take care of your mental health. Some also choose, with the medication, allowing for that chemical imbalance to balance that the person can engage in normal activities. But if sort of a preventative method, it's also to check in all those areas of your life, how am I engaging? What is happening in that area? And taking care of those spheres individually, you are then taking care of your mental health. And that's obviously sort of a general approach to it. But hopefully I gave some understanding of what is mental health so that people understand how can I take care of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so any practical ways, for example, that you can give for taking care of for example, my body, or my social life, or my
Yes.
spirituality?
Yes, yeah. So let's start with physical.
Okay.
So with physical health, it's recommended that one exercises 30 minutes a day for 3 times a week.
Okay.
And that being that there's a certain hormone, it's called serotonin, endorphins, when you exercise, that happy hormone that we call it, right? That's ways you can take care of your mental health. Sleep. So it's prescribed that we sleep for I hope I'm not speaking too quickly. Hopefully those listening, you have your pen and paper. So with sleep, we sleep for 7 to 9 hours a day, or per day. And it's not just sort of a fun number that they threw out there. It's because we go through certain sleep cycles. And if you calculate how much time we spend with each sleep cycle, it's 90 minutes. So then that calculates to your body restoring itself. Short-term memory going into long-term memory.
Okay.
Again, then taking care of your mental health.
Okay.
Diet. There are certain foods that give you energy and certain foods that take away your energy, right? That also contributes to the brain and sort of gut relationships. So that's the physical.
Okay.
Moving on to the social. So some relationships really help. The support structures, right? We need support, right? When you're feeling alone and you feel like isolating yourself, some of us, that's how we deal with certain stresses. But when we speak to someone, we feel better. Again, that's ways you can take care of your mental health. Who do I have in my corner, right? Or who should I start having in my corner? Maybe it can be a psychologist, okay? And then another factor is financial. So really, if you want to look at the world financially, either you're a breadwinner or you're constantly consuming and so on. So if I'm unable to take care of my finances, that may cause some stresses in my life, right? And in taking care of that, I'm also taking care of my mental health. I'm also taking care of how I contribute to society. Spiritual, right? We are spiritual beings, our sense of purpose in life. What drives me, right? Where do I get my sense of values? When I make important decisions, what do I sit down and think about in terms of what are my core values? What drives me? So sort of, I hope I gave practical tips. And again, with emotional, being aware of your emotions. Our emotions shouldn't necessarily drive our actions. So if I'm angry, you're allowed to be angry. You're allowed to be sad. They're indicators of where you're at. So if you're angry, that means something happened that violated your rights, that made you angry. If you're happy, that means something, happened again. If you're excited, you're looking forward to something. So emotions are beautiful indicators. But if I'm unaware of my emotions, I'm constantly just acting and realizing, why did I... that relationship didn't work out because maybe I wasn't aware of those emotions. So in essence, if you just look at your life according to the wheel, I guess the life wheel, and in each area, how am I nurturing each area in my life wheel? And that's sort of, I hope I gave enough practical tips on taking care of your mental health in that way.
That's so good. I loved when you spoke about what we can do physically, like exercise 3 times a week for 30 minutes, for example. And, when you spoke about the emotional one, the emotional aspect about being aware of our emotions, like I said, last year I had so much emotional strain at work, and because of how fast paced it is, I didn't get time to deal with it.
Yeah.
So it would be, you wake up, you get back, you upset. And I remember just one night coming back from work, and I just cried.
Sure.
Like, I had a proper breakdown. And from then on, I remember I was phoning my friends. I was like, is it okay? Is it okay? And they were affirming me that your emotions matter. So I just thought I'd share that as well. Just one more thing that I'd like us to speak about with regards to taking care of ourselves and our mental health is placing boundaries. You did say that our mental health is affected by the physical, the social. So there's people involved, there's finances involved. But here I am. There's my mom keeps on asking for money. For example, she just found out I just got a job. She wants money all the time, or those kind of things. So how do we go about setting boundaries and implementing them?
Yeah, I love boundaries. Something I'm very passionate about. So boundaries, in essence, a lot of people might say, boundaries are just saying no and like, I don't care what you do. Boundaries define what is me and what is not me. They define what is my responsibility and what is not my responsibility.
So good. I love that.
So what is me? What is me? My values, that's me, right? My opinions, that's me. My body, that's me, right? My thinking, my thoughts, my finances, my talents, that's me. So something that is not me, my mom's opinion of me when I say no, my partner's emotions when I want to maybe go somewhere, etc. My teacher's thoughts about my dress code, for example, that's not me. So that means I don't have responsibility over that. Now that we've clarified that, then how do I set those boundaries, right? So remember, let's take values. It's based on values. Again, our values look different. I have to own my yes and own my no. What I say yes to might not be the same as you. But in essence, if I don't set a boundary, then I'm not protecting that value. So then I'd ask you, what is it that you value regarding this whole situation with your mom, right? Obviously you value the relationship, I'm assuming. But maybe it looks like you value your finances, right? Because yes, you want to contribute, you want to give back to your family, but right now you're not in that position to. So if I value my finances, what boundary do I need to set in place? Okay, that means I need to protect either giving a certain amount. So, Mom, I can only give this amount. I can't give the full amount like I used to. Or I can't give this whole amount like I used to. Why? Sticking back to that value. There will be guilt. It's not like we all walk around and set boundaries and it's happy. There's guilt involved, guilt tripping, and especially if there weren't boundaries, people will retaliate and say, wow, look at you now that you're working here. But remember your value.
Sure.
So some other people value their relationships more than their finances. Well, I'm not saying that, just because you set boundaries with finance doesn't mean you value. But some people might say, well, you know what? I value where my mom and I are going and what we're building. So I rather give that, and rather maybe I don't get enough food, or maybe I don't splurge as much on that nice Zara outfit. But it's in essence owning your yes and owning your no. Yeah.
So good. I don't think I've ever looked at boundaries in the way that you've said them to be. That it's about realizing what I'm responsible for.
Yes.
So I cannot take up things that do not belong to me. And I think the one thing that puts our mentality under strain is because we like to take things that do not belong to us. Like we like to carry people's burdens.
Yes.
You take people's responsibilities. And other times, the time to say no is important. No, I don't have the time. No, I don't have the money. No, I cannot do a relationship that's going to take away this and this and this from me. So I love that. And I think the topic on boundary is so broad that would take the entire day if we wanted to go further into it. But in closing, anything else you'd like to share on boundaries, on any tips?
I think just to add, this is not sort of to say like let's all go blame other people and now I can set boundaries. And one more thing, there are different reasons why maybe we didn't have boundaries in the past. Maybe our childhood, where we were made to feel a certain way or feel guilty for saying no. So we didn't really have ownership of what we felt was ours, right? That maybe when we grow up, we felt we need to say yes to things we don't actually, so we don't own our yes and own our no. Or maybe we've grown up with people who are more aggressive. It's difficult to say no to them because they're literally physical consequences or verbal consequences that will hurt me. So I rather just give in and say, yes. So there are various reasons. Remember that it's difficult for us to say no, and also working through that. There are different ways you can work through why, I guess, behind the difficulty of setting boundaries. Or sometimes it's just that self-confidence of standing up and saying no and getting that feedback from other people who like actually we don't like her, you know what I mean? But remember, it's a process.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm actually thinking the difference between boundaries and actually isolating yourself. But anyway, guys, there's so much we can talk about. Thank you guys for tuning in and watching. And thanks to Makungu for coming and speaking to us about mental health. And we are going to have a further discussion on just resting when it comes to mental health. And truly grateful to have you and have you speak to us about this. Guys, please don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe and share, as well as tune into the other video that I'm going to have a discussion about rest with Makungu. Goodbye.